The courts will not save us. Historically speaking, the court gets it wrong all the time. Of course, I don't mean every case, but they are so often on the wrong side of history. Today, I'm going to highlight just 4 examples because even among legal scholars, there's a general consensus that these are the most egregious. So for you legal nerds out there, Dred Scott, Plessy versus Ferguson, Buck v. Bell, and the Korematsu decision. Those are all judicial whoppers. Like I just said, of course there are others, but just these 4 landmark decisions bring the point home. We cannot rely on the court to save us. In every case, historically, it is the people who needed to rise up, take an active role in reminding the government that our fundamental inalienable rights come from God and cannot be taken away. The Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, has often bowed to political pressure. As a check or protection from government overreach from the other 2 branches, they just get it wrong. For example, in 1857 in Dred Scott, the court ruled that black people, all black people, even free black people above the Mason-Dixon line, were all considered chattel or property. What? Yeah, the court ruled that all black people were property. I know Dred Scott is low-hanging fruit, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a legal scholar anywhere who didn't label Scott as the single worst decision the court has ever ruled on. And it would be wonderful if we could think of Dred Scott as just an outlier. You know, a one-off. But sadly, the highest court in the land swings and misses far too often. In 1896 in Plessy versus Ferguson, the court upheld those horrific Jim Crow laws in that brilliant decision coining the phrase separate but equal. In Buck v. Bell in 1927, the Supreme Court ruled that it was legal to sterilize inmates in mental institutions, which gives us an opportunity to digress for a moment, highlighting one of the court's all-time preeminent legal scholars. In his nearly 30 years in the Supreme Court, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. was known for his effective use of language in both his opinions and dissents, considered by some scholars to be the finest legal mind and greatest legal scholar on the bench, and one of its most cited members. His language in defense of free speech is noted for its eloquence and progressive thinking. If there is any principle of the Constitution that more imperatively calls for attachment than any other, it is the principle of free thought. Not free thought for those who agree with us, but freedom for the thought that we hate. By the way, that used to be the position of the ACLU and the left. I suppose that position is no longer compatible with socialism and communism. Holmes also famously opined, "The most stringent protection of free speech would not protect a man in falsely shouting fire in a theater and causing a panic." But that same legal mind, a human being, gave us this brilliance in Buck v. Bell, upholding Virginia's statute to sterilize inmates in mental institutions. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. Yikes. Hat tip czar from a 2017 article I quoted from the Historical Archives. It just goes to show you that even the best legal minds can get it wrong. And the last example today is that brilliant Korematsu decision from 1944, where the court ruled that those Japanese internment camps were justified and legal during World War II. What all of these cases show is that the court is made up of human beings, fellow citizens that live among us. And sometimes, like in Dred Scott, the court bows to political and social pressures. Fun historical fact, the court actually ruled in Dred Scott's favor in their initial deliberation, but they ultimately succumbed to political pressure from Chief Justice Taney and direct threats from then-President James Buchanan. Some historians believe that Dred Scott was one of the sparks or catalysts for the American Civil War. Way to go, Supreme Court. I'm not suggesting for a second that we shouldn't have fought the Civil War to end slavery. What I'm suggesting is that the court could have ruled 3 or 4 years earlier that slavery was unconstitutional and saved us from the bloodiest war our country has ever seen. Again, the court's not going to save us. Trust me, you don't have to go to law school or be an attorney to understand these cases. I invite each of you to read these horrifying decisions. They're all available online for free. Links are in the description below. So what's the solution now that you know you can't rely on the courts? Well, first, you have to clean out the corruption in the first 2 branches of government. We're supposed to be a government run by the consent of the governed, we the people, which means we all have to take an active role in government, federal, state, and local. And most importantly, we have to hold our elected representatives accountable so we don't give the court an opportunity to screw it up. Now, even with my 4 examples, some scholars would postulate that eventually the court gets it right. But even in these cases, that argument falls short. Dred Scott, the single worst decision ever, never gets overturned. It's rendered moot by the bloodiest war in American history, the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, and then the 13th Amendment in 1865. Yes, Plessy versus Ferguson is eventually overturned in 1954 in Brown versus the Board of Education. You know, separate but equal is not equal. But that's 58 years later. What? Remember the Oliver Wendell Holmes case we just covered, Buck v. Bell? Well, that one's never been overturned. Fun fact, it's been rendered moot by state law, but the court never overturned it. Oh, and Korematsu, the Japanese internment case? That's never been formally overturned. Yes, in 1983, the lower federal courts overturned the Korematsu decisions. And yes, in 2018, Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Sotomayor condemned the 1944 decision, but the Supreme Court never had an opportunity to overturn the 1944 decision. And here's the kicker. After the events of 2020 and 2021, we can all envision the court allowing for the internment of American citizens for a health emergency. So when the court makes a mistake and then eventually gets it right, it's only after a generational nightmare. And sometimes that nightmare lasts several generations. Sometimes the court never gets it right. The bottom line is we cannot rely on the courts to save us. That's why it's imperative that we have strong moral leadership in the other two branches of government to ensure that our rights are protected. The court is only as good or as strong as the people we put there. Today, we have a Supreme Court justice who cannot define what a woman is.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the
biologist.
meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
I can't.
What? How the heck did that happen? Until next time, hit that like button, join, comment, and share. Remember, everyone wakes up at their own pace, and you are not alone. It's our job to help and educate as many people as possible. God bless America, God bless this podcast, and God bless you. Stay frosty, my friends.